from the station that's on your side. This is News 12 at 6 o'clock.
It was a challenging time, I think, for our entire nation, and no one really knew what to do next.
This is a day of remembrance.
On September 11th, 2001, 2,977 people were killed by terrorists through attacks along the East Coast.
From climbing 110 flights with full firefighting gear to honor walks and moments of silence all across our area, this was a day to honor and remember the heroes who died and the loved ones we lost.
Nationally, a moment of silence at Ground Zero started as each of the 2,977 names of the victims were read aloud this morning. In Shanksville, Pennsylvania, each of the 40 victims of Flight 93 honored there, and loved ones walked through the gates of the memorial to visit the crash site.
And the unveiling of a massive American flag at the Pentagon for the 64 people on board Flight 77 and the 125 killed inside that building.
And in the wake of the attacks, America began the war on terror.
Soldiers sent to the Middle East, a generation of young adults inspired, answering the call to join our armed forces. Sydney Hood is live for us in the newsroom. And Sydney, you spoke with veterans today, one who was already serving and one who was inspired to enlist.
Yes, two different people from two different generations, both with different plans for their lives. But this one day that forever changed our country came as a calling for these two, a call both answered without hesitation.
We were quiet for literally, it felt like hours, but it probably was about 5 and 10 minutes, and we don't have a quiet home. So everyone was just in awe and shock and disbelief.
He was 16 years old.
I had hopes and dreams of following in my father's footsteps at the time, of being a barber and cutting hair and owning my own shop and salon as like he does.
But one dark day changed his life.
I knew that it was my calling to serve my country.
A call he and nearly 200,000 Americans answered.
When you join the military, you know, of course, you might go to war, you take an oath. But now it was a reality.
He was already serving in the National Guard.
We got called into the armory for the National Guard, and one of the sergeants there was actually greeting all of us as we came up to the door and shaking our hand and said, "Are you ready to go to war?"
A question that would soon change so many lives.
It kind of instilled a sense of urgency of how do we start preparing to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And to make sure no one forgets.
I knew right then and there that it was the right decision, regardless of the outcome and regardless of the sacrifice. I felt that it was my responsibility to do my part to fight for my country and my family.
And you ask these two if they would do it all again, and both will give you the same answer. They wouldn't change a thing.
Sydney, thanks for that, and thanks to all of our veterans and active duty service members.
We owe more gratitude than we could ever say, and many of us remember exactly where we were and what we were doing that day 22 years ago.
But in our schools, educators are teaching the next generation. Craig Allison shows us how they're passing on the lessons of 9/11.
22 years ago today, people can remember down to the minute who they were with and what they were doing when they first heard about the attacks on September 11th. But what does that mean for Gen Z teachers entering the workforce that were born around that time, or even high school students that weren't alive for that tragic day? Well, places like Greenbrier High School are taking the time to stress its importance so that these future generations never forget.
We came together as a nation. We bonded together. They might have hurt our infrastructure, but, you know, we clung together.
For these Gen Z kids, even young teachers, 9/11 is something that can seem like just a moment in D.C. or New York in a textbook.
If you went up and down the roads of rural Georgia or downtown Atlanta, you seen American flags everywhere. We bonded as one nation, no matter what color you were, what religion, or what political affiliation you dealt with.
He tasked his students with interviewing someone who remembered that day. A similar assignment for Miss Matthew's sixth graders, who are even younger, born at least a decade after that tragic day.
Everyone has a different story to tell. It was very impactful to me, of course, but as it's my daughter's birthday. And so it really makes a big impact on me.
A dark lesson for any age, but important all the same.
It was a time when there were no flags left in town. There was a time when there was no red, white, or blue ribbon to be had because we were patriotic and we loved living in America. And I wish we could get back to that feeling again.
This is only the second time that Greenbrier High School has done an event like this, and they hope to continue doing this, teaching future generations and remembering this day for years to come. Across the CSRA, Craig Allison, on your side.
It's certainly one of those things you will never forget. Where were you when you heard?
I remember I was on the Georgia coast watching this unfold on television, then driving back to Augusta, small town after small town, and it was immediate. The flags came out, the messages appeared on signs within hours after it happened. And they're right, everybody was united, all as one.
That was something good that came out of it.
And where were you?
The history class. I was in middle school, and I remember the teacher's face, you know, and when you're in middle school, you knew it was bad, but you couldn't fully understand, but all of us were silent. They wheeled out TVs into the main area, which I thought was a good move. You know, they let us watch history unfold that day.
Absolutely, and now a generation learning all about this in school for the first time.
Riley?
Guys, it was a hot afternoon for us. We had a week. We'll have a full look at that forecast in just about 10 minutes.
Back to our coverage of September 11th. 22 years later, and Columbia County Fire Rescue is finding new ways to commemorate those attacks.
This year, they gathered for an honor climb at the Plaza parking deck in Evans, giving the next generation just a better idea of what those first responders actually went through 22 years ago.
Hallie Turner was there as they suited up for a climb they will never forget.
The bell rings. The sirens wail. Never forgetting those who gave it all 22 years ago.
Dispatch to NYPD. Dispatch to New York Port Authority. May we never forget you and always honor and cherish your memory. Columbia County Dispatch clear.
We do the stair climb because people that were not born are now in our fire department. And so it allows them to feel what they did instead of just having a ceremony. They actually get to experience what those guys went through.
Climbing 110 flights of stairs in remembrance of the people who took their last steps.
The first phone call I got was, hey, go turn on the TV, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And I turned it on, and I'm thinking this was a small plane that hit. And I'm watching live as the second plane hit, and I'm like, this isn't right. Something doesn't make sense here.
My brother called me and told me that the plane had hit. He was in Tower 2. I said, boy, get out of there. Run for your life.
Her brother survived, but thousands of others did not. It's a day that shaped our nation, and a day they want generations to come to always remember.
But we do things like this to keep the memory alive. Like Ruby here, she's 7. She's a generation past that day happening, so things like this teach the lessons of that day and the memories to her.
Never forgetting the why.
This was a global event. This just wasn't an attack on America. This was an attack on freedom, what we believe, and it affected the whole world.
May we never forget you and always honor and cherish your memory. Columbia County Dispatch clear.
In Columbia County, Hallie Turner on your side.
A really powerful way to remember that day.
You know, across the country, there are countless events to mark the anniversary, including right here at Fort Gordon. They had a 9.11 kilometer run followed by a ceremony with both military and state leaders today. And one message rang clear for those at the Army post: we have to take what we learned from those attacks and use it to make sure it never happens again.
We cannot win America's next war by preparing for America's last war. To defend our shores, we must imagine the next 9/11, the next Pearl Harbor, and be trained, fit, and ready.
During the ceremony, veterans and first responders shared their stories, and wreaths were placed in commemoration of this day in history. You can also find a moving display of flags over at the Bass Pro Shops off Riverwatch Parkway. 2,977 flags representing each life lost 22 years ago.
New at 6 o'clock, we're learning more about an investigation into the death of a 3-year-old. The Aiken County Coroner's Office identifying that child as Riley Scott. Deputies were called to a home on Ellen Drive near Jackson Stem Middle School last night for an unresponsive child, and reports show the child's mom noticed vomit in the bed and that she was turning blue. Scott was pronounced dead at the hospital. There's an autopsy scheduled today to find out how she died, but no charges have been made yet in her death.
The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and the GBI need your help finding a vehicle believed to be connected to a homicide. This is all tied to the death of 19-year-old Kia Shields. Police say she was shot on October the 26th around 1 in the morning at her home on Washington Street in Rennes. Any information on the vehicle or Shields' death, you should call the GBI.
Coming up, we're going to tell you how to get involved in a seriously fun event with a seriously important goal: saving local infants and making sure kids have a safe place to sleep.
And we're going to stay with above average temperatures the next couple of days, but late into the week, we're going to get a little taste of fall back. We'll have an update on the full forecast next. Time in a couple of days, but much drier as we close out the week.
A partnership to save local babies is off the ground and running, and we need your help. We found too many babies here at home are dying simply because they don't have a safe place to sleep at night. Even one preventable death is certainly one too many, but we found 16 babies died in Richmond County alone just in a year's time from sleeping on an unsafe surface. Finding solutions starts with teamwork. You've been donating pack and plays here at News 12 and to the Family Y, and we've collected about 10. And we are so grateful. But we need dozens and dozens more of these to fill the need and help save babies long term.
This new partnership with the Children's Hospital is going to allow us to identify the families that need these beds and for the community to be able to get involved and help and provide those beds.
Doctors and nurses, along with social workers at Wellstar MCG Health, will help identify patients who truly need this help. And the need is great.
I anticipate on a weekly basis to have several patients that would be qualifying for this type of service.
Dr. Champa Woodham treats high-risk moms, and she knows once this program fully launches in October, we will need a lot of pack and plays.
I think the problem before was no one was really asking. And now that we've been asking, we realize this is a void that we need to fill.
So that's where the Augusta Canal comes in. And you're probably asking, what does the canal have to do with saving babies? And we're so glad you asked.
Augusta Duck Dash is going to help us provide cribs for children that don't have cribs.
All of these rubber duckies are going to fulfill their destiny and live out their dream of saving babies on October 21st at Savannah Rapids Park. It's the Augusta Duck Dash, and you can adopt a rubber ducky for $10 and watch them race down the canal to win prizes. The first prize is $1,500 cash and a year family membership to the Y. All of the proceeds go to the Family Y's Place to Dream program.
It enables us to kind of take these beds we've been giving to children and now extend these cribs to babies that need that.
And before we send those ducks on a rapid ride, we're hosting a fun, free family fall festival with bounce houses, food trucks, a costume contest for the kids, and trunk or treat. And there are several prizes to be won along the way, all for a great cause. So for more details and to adopt a duck, you can go to AugustaDuckDash.com. We'll link you there on our website too. Certainly money you will not regret donating. You could win some really cool prizes. You could help save a life along the way.
And we hope to see you out there by the canal. I'm going to be there announcing my first ever duck race.
That's right.
Along with you.
We're expecting it to be a nail biter. So if you can't make it to the canal, we'll be streaming it on our online platforms too. But we hope you're there so Richard and I can say hey. And thank you for donating to this project.
And I think we already tested the flow code. You can actually scan the flow code and buy your duck right there online. Make it easy.
That's exactly right. So we'll post that online. And yeah, so you can buy those as of today. So you can start buying your winning duck.
It'll be fun coming up this fall. Well, coming up next in sports, it is time for the Border Bash. South Carolina heading to Georgia this week to kick off SEC play. Plus, help us choose our high school game of the week to hold you over until Saturday's matchup.
On your sideline, sports brought to you by the Hawk Law Group.
We've reached the week that's probably been the cause of some divorces, some fiery family dinner table conversations, or the lack of, and just plainly chose the silent treatment route.
It's Border Bash week, and South Carolina could be in trouble. After a slew of Gamecocks were hurt in the game against North Carolina, 3 more left the game against the Paladins, including wide receiver Marion Brown and defensive end Drew Tozama and defensive back Keenan Nelson. Saturday's matchup with the Dogs could be more bash than play for the Gamecocks. Georgia has broken the 40-point barrier the previous 2 games and now owns the country's longest home win streak.
We've got to be prepared. It's not just Rattler, it's the weapons he has around him. They've got an elite group of wideouts and even tight ends that they use, and he makes a lot of plays, and they got guys that can play the ball down the field. I mean, the explosive plays they've made in the last, 4 to 5 games of theirs is pretty special.
Rattler was sacked 9 times against North Carolina in Saturday's game against Herman. He went down once. There's no doubt he'll be tested against Georgia's defense come Saturday afternoon. To hold you over, here are your choices for game of the week. It's going to be either Harlem at home, a Brickyard battle with Laney, a crosstown matchup at Westside, or you could see Barnwell take on Aiken. Aiken and Barnwell have my vote. Last time I checked, Thompson was winning, so be sure to cast your vote.
And a heads up due to a lack of officials. The Washington County versus Glen Hills game, that's been rescheduled. It'll now be Thursday the 14th at 7 p.m. Riley?
Well, it's only Monday, but we can always look ahead to the weekend, and the weekend looks fantastic. We should actually see highs in the 80s, staying dry in the morning. Temperatures are going to feel really good. We'll have a look at those in the 7-day just after break.
At Savannah Medicare Specialists, we proudly serve Georgia and South Carolina. For a commitment-free consultation, please give us a call or visit our website, RU64.com.
Got in a car, Crystal. Now you know.
Thanks for watching News 12 on your side.
Never took you for a mariachi guy.
Really not a huge fan, but seems to be all of us do these days. RU64.com.
Who are you talking to?
Coming up on the CBS Evening News, the American trapped more than 3,000 feet deep in a cave. Tonight, his near-death experience as rescuers try to get him out. How he navigated waterfalls, narrow passageways, and near-freezing temperatures. That and more news tonight on the CBS Evening News.
All right, well, live look over Grovetown. Still a little bit of cloud cover out there, and temperatures are still warm for us. 89 degrees, feeling like 93 here in Augusta. Temperatures will gradually fall into the 70s once we do get closer to sunset. And we're hoping these skies can clear out for us a little